love lives here.
So now I get to welcome again our beloved Neil. Remember when Neil used to be with us all the time? Don't we miss him? I do. I miss him. But in case you've forgotten who he is, I have a little bio for you. Neil Hayner became involved with CSL after attending a CSL summer camp for the first time. Too bad he didn't get to go to Cedar Ridge camp. He's been there now, but he didn't go there at summer camp. He went there for, did you? Oh, you were with the group that built, oh, okay. So he helped build the labyrinth that Mike and I went up to refurbish. Not alone, there were other people, but it's beautiful. If you can get up there to Vernonia, do so, please. He completed his foundation work at RCSL and completed his practitioner studies at CSL Greater Las Vegas more than 10 years ago. Gives you some idea of how old he is. He is currently serving as co-interim spiritual director at the Center for Spiritual Living in Beaumont, where he has served in leadership position for many years. He is currently in the process of completing his ministerial studies at Holmes Institute. Neil believes that his life's work is to empower transformation through education. He believes that spiritual education and practices can change lives because it has changed his life. He fulfills this through his work as a fourth grade teacher, let's all bless him, teaching Science of Mind coursework and continuing his own studies, not teaching Science of Mind as a fourth grade teacher. There was a comma in there. So please give Neil a warm Riverside welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for braving the rain to be here with me this morning. I know I'm glad to be here. I know that you feel the same way that I do, that Riverside Center for Spiritual Living is my home away from home. And I'm happy to report that even though I participated in my Holmes Institute graduation in June, I actually finished my last paper of my last class last weekend. So now I'm looking forward to doing my final exams in the fall. So it always seems like there's one more hoop in ministry. On the road to ministry, there's always one more thing, and it's been an adventure to say the least. So I have to admit, I've been a little jealous. I actually really love the book, The 15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership, although I would probably call it The 15 Commitments to Conscious Living. It is about leadership, but it's also just about being conscious and living from a place of empowerment. I know that you had my fellow students, Jesse Keeler and Marcus, here this summer. They're some of my favorite people at Holmes, so I know that you've had a good summer. I'm sure that you're looking forward to having Reverend Jeffrey back, and I know that he returns next week, and he'll be full of vim and vigor and ready to hit the ground running and be refreshed and renewed and ready to really bring back that presence that he is and recommitting to that being the place that love shows up that I know is true about Riverside. And I always am jealous when I come here because the music is amazing. I know it's easy to forget how awesome Riverside rocks. So that should be you guys' new slogan, Riverside rocks. But I also hope that this community is feeling a little refreshed and renewed and ready to commit to living that conscious life that you've been talking about all summer. And perhaps you're ready to step up. And if you're not already a leader, because what I know about Riverside is it's a community of leaders, maybe you're feeling called to step up and take a more leadership role here in your spiritual community. And that's what my talk is today. It's about stepping up, leveling up. And it's not just about the 15 commitments to conscious leadership. It's about putting all of those 15 commitments into practice. Because it's one thing to hear the book or listen to the book and read the book. It's another thing to actually live the principles of conscious living. You know, a lot of times when we see that book, and we think, well, I'm not a leader, so this book isn't for me. I don't need to read this book because I don't consider myself a leader. But the truth is that we're all leaders. You're all leaders in your own life, in your family, in your job, in your spiritual community. There's some place in your life where you are a leader. And you're a more effective leader if you do it consciously. You are the CEO of your life. You are the Chief Empowerment Officer or the Conscious Empowerment Officer of your life. You are the CEO of your life. So even though we might say, well, I'm not in charge of anything and I'm not a leader, so this doesn't apply to me, we all have areas in our life where we are called to be leaders. So our topic today is about that 15th, that last commitment, and it says this: I commit to being the resolution or the solution that is needed, seeing what is missing in the world as an invitation to become that which is required. I commit to being the resolution or the solution that is needed, seeing what is missing in the world as an invitation to become that which is required. But of course, we know that these 15 commitments to conscious living or conscious leadership don't mean anything if we're not willing to live above the line, to live above that line of conscious choice, to step away from being victims and villains and step into being conscious creative coaches and challengers and creatives, not just in your own life and in the world, but in your spiritual community too. Because the truth is, the world has enough villains. The world has enough victims. The world has enough hero martyrs. That's not what's needed. What's needed is for people of consciousness, of choice, of spiritual motivation to step up. The authors of the 15 Commitments say this: whenever we sense that something is missing, the world invites us to be the resolution and become that which brings forth even more beauty, productivity, alignment, health, and contribution. So I want you to keep that in mind as I'm talking today, because this isn't, when I say missing, I'm not talking about coming from a place of lack or limitation. I'm coming from a place of empowerment. What are we already doing, and what can be more? More loving, more in alignment, more beauty, more health. Not from a place of lack and limitation, but from a place of empowerment and growth. Are you with me so far? So one of the most important principles, I think, in this book, and one of the reasons I really love it, and probably one of the most important principles in our teaching that you've probably heard about a lot this summer, is that idea of being 100% responsible for your consciousness and what you create in life. 100% responsible. And if I'm honest, I think that sometimes that's the reason why people don't stay in our teaching. They come in the door, and we say, we're so glad you're here. You're 100% responsible for your life. And they say, nope, and they leave. Right? Because it's not easy. It takes work. It takes commitment. To say that whatever it is I'm experiencing in life, I am 100% responsible for my experience of that life. That word, responsibility, is not one of our favorite words in our culture lately. Have you noticed? I can tell you from my experience teaching fourth grade that I deal with this every day. Responsibility's not a driving force in our culture at the moment. But that word responsibility literally means the ability to respond. The ability to respond. Our teaching, Science of Mind, teaches us that we have the ability to respond to our life. We are not victims. We are not villains. We don't have to be martyrs. If we feel like there's something missing, a call for more in our life, we have the ability to respond. If I'm feeling like I'm lacking abundance in my life, I can respond to that. I can do something about it. If love or physical health is missing from your life, you have the ability to respond. You have the spiritual tools and principles to do something about it. In fact, you may even have a responsibility to yourself to do that. That same principle applies to the world. If you look out into the world and see a world that is missing beauty or equality or justice, you have the ability to respond. If you look out at your spiritual community and you see that something is missing, you have the ability to respond from a place of conscious choice. First and most importantly, by being that thing that you say is missing. If I think that there is a possibility of more peace in the world, that starts by me first being that peace. And then, once I have the beingness, perhaps I'm called into doingness, to do something to bring more peace into the world. And when I was getting ready for this talk, I kind of got convicted of something. And I think it's really one of those things that tells you whether you're above the line or below the line of consciousness. And that is complaining. I am as guilty about it as anybody else. I always like to say when I stand up here, really I'm just talking to myself, you guys just get to listen. When we are complaining, we're assigning blame to something outside of ourselves. And it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by what we feel, the way that the world is missing the mark, the ways that things that are missing in the world. And we feel like we can't deal with all the problems and all of the needs and all of the fears of the world. And so we shut down and we become numb. Or we just blame the governments, or we blame the education system. And we say, that's not my responsibility. I can't respond to that. But that's disempowering. And it's just not true. We give our power away, and we say, the problem is out there, and it's happening to me. That's that victim consciousness. It's happening to me. It's their problem. But if we're coming from a place of oneness, it's not us versus them. It's our problem. So as I was getting ready for this and thinking about the ways that we sometimes complain in the world, I'm really committed this week to paying attention to what I'm complaining about. Because if you think about it, when you complain about something, you're essentially saying that something is missing. Something is missing. And rather than being it or doing it, I'm just going to complain that somebody else hasn't done it. Recently at my job, they were trying to schedule this professional development. And they literally rescheduled it like 6 times in the span of 3 days. Now, I work for the education system, and I can tell you that it often misses the mark. It's not a perfect system. But in the span of those 3 days, they rescheduled this professional development like 6 times. First, it was going to be a whole day, and then it was going to be a half a day, and then they decided they didn't have enough subs, and then they realized they forgot to schedule in people's lunch. And all the teachers were standing around, and of course, we're just venting and complaining and, complaining, I was going to say the other word, about the situation, and wondering, why can't they just get their act together, right? But did my complaining do anything to solve the problem? Not really. Did it raise the energy vibration of that situation? Not at all. In fact, it probably lowered it a bit. But as I'm complaining, I'm thinking about, what is it that I'm saying is missing? Leadership? Respect? Kindness? Patience? Am I choosing to be those things? Or am I just saying, those people out there, that's their problem. What's wrong with them? When we complain and we blame, we give our power away. And we're missing the opportunity to be more, to do more, to be that which we are called to be. It's like a person driving down the street with her friend. And she's driving around and she's looking and she's saying, "Oh, look at all that trash by the side of the road. I can't believe people do that. People are such slobs. How can people just leave their trash everywhere?" And the friend in the car with her says, "Well, how about we go for a walk tomorrow and we pick up some trash?" And she says, "Not me, that's not my job. That's what I pay taxes for. That's not mine to do." But if you're going to complain about it, maybe there's a reason, there's a mission for you in that complaint. First, being that thing that you see is missing, and then perhaps doing something about it. So when you complain, think about, what am I saying is missing in this situation? And am I called to do something about it? Now, can we solve every problem in the world? Can we fill every gap? Of course not. Not everything is ours to do in that regard. And if sometimes we do things that we're not called to do, it's very tempting for us to fall into that hero mentality, the martyr of I just have to do everything myself. And then we start complaining about that. I have to do everything. That's not true either. But conscious living means being open and willing to look for what is missing, what could be more, what is calling for expansion and growth, what is mine to do. If it's yours to do, great. If it's not, maybe what's missing is just prayer, or being willing and opening for a resolution to show up. And maybe at the very least that we can do is just not complain about it. The author Richard Bach, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, says, "Here is the test to find out whether your mission on earth is finished. If you're alive, it isn't." The good news is you matter. You are the hands, the feet, the consciousness. You are that vessel that Spirit has put on this earth for a purpose. And it doesn't matter if you're retired, if you're young, if you're rich or you're poor, if you're a practitioner or a lay person. The universe needs you to be you and do the things that only you can do in the way that only you can do them. So the authors of the 15 Commitments for Spiritual Living, conscious living, have some suggestions. And you take this as your challenge for the week. Step 1, place your attention on your world at work or at home or your spiritual community. Allow something that is missing to come to your attention. What could be more efficient, more aligned, more productive more beautiful, or more connected? Notice the word more in there. It's not about coming from a place of lacking or a place of problems, but what could be more than it is at this moment? Got something? Step 2. Is there an invitation in what is missing? Keep in mind, an invitation is not an obligation or a duty. You are free to accept or reject the invitation. The invitation is to be or become something or someone that responds to what is missing. It's an invitation to expand and grow. The world is not served by you being a martyr and saying things to things that aren't yours to do. Step 3, do you have a whole body yes to accept the invitation? If not, move on from this invitation. If yes, do step 4. Take some deep breaths and drop into your center. With curiosity, ask, what is the universe inviting me to be or become in this moment related to what I perceive as missing? And be willing to listen. Step 5, embody the invitation. What does it physically and energetically feel like? How does your breath change? How do you think differently? What behaviors do you change? If action is called for, what action are you being called to take? If there is a doing that is to come forth from this, go and do it. Are you willing to step up, to live the principles of conscious living? It's easy in our lives, and even in spiritual community, to always point out what's wrong, what's missing, what could be done better. But the truth is, it takes courage and integrity and sufficiency and wisdom to be willing to be part of the solution. Theodore Roosevelt wrote a piece of writing called The Man in the Arena, and it's been sitting with me for a while. And he says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But the credit belongs to he who does actually strive to do the deeds. It is easy to complain and blame. It takes commitment to conscious living to lead, to show up to committees and events, to lend a helping hand, to volunteer, to offer ideas and suggestions, to see something, be willing, and listen to that inner calling, that inner urge to show up as only you can, to be the hands, the feet of Spirit, and to step up. And so it is. So I just take this opportunity to rest and relax in the atmosphere of Spirit. As I listen deeply, I am reminded that there is only one power, one presence, one principle, one infinite, incredible, intelligent, creative mind from which everything comes. Everything that I know and everything I do not know, everything that I see and everything that I don't see is spirit in action, is divine right order, love, wholeness, peace, perfect right action, creative intelligence, perfect abundance. It is this energy, this power, this intelligence, which I call God, simply because it is the biggest word that I know. And I know that I live and move and have my being in that principle, in that power, in that presence that is spirit. And what I know is true about me, I know is true for every single person within the sound of my voice. I know there is that creative spirit, that divine love, that wisdom within each one of us that is whispering to each one of us to step into our greatness, to be more, to be the hands, the feet, and the love of spirit, to be that which is called to be, and to do that which I am called to do. And so I speak my word for each one of us this morning, knowing that spirit is present in each one of our lives, that the wholeness and the grace of God is present wherever it is needed, whatever it is that you feel that is lacking this morning. I know it is right where you are because God is right where you are. So wherever there is a perceived lack, a missing of wholeness, I know that God is there. I know wherever there is a perceived lack of abundance, that God is there. That divine right action is there. Whatever it is that feels like it is out of alignment or out of energy, I know that Spirit has got that this morning. That it is showing up in your life right here and right now. And I give great thanks for this spiritual community that reminds me of my own divinity, my own ability to respond. And I release this word into that infinite law that always says yes, and that responds to me by saying yes. And in great gratitude and great surrender, I simply declare it to be so, and so it is.